Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of The Things We Know. Uh, Being Gen X, that was all the very special episodes of the
Yes.
shows we watched when we were younger.
It's a very tragic episode, but it's very
Yeah,
special.
it is a tragic episode. Um, so, we have some really great episodes coming up in November. As we kind of joke, past Lisa and Carrie knew what they were doing by scheduling the ones we've scheduled for November. But we just couldn't let the election pass without speaking to it a little bit because you and I, for both of us, this pod, what we do in our personal coaching businesses is all about empowering women to, I always say for me, it's about I want women to be fully in love with their life because I feel like if you're in love with your life, then you're going to go out and spread that joy and that mission, outwardly. Um, and I was feeling pretty disempowered on Wednesday morning. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
what do you want to say?
Well, like you said, it's 2 days later. I'm still in the middle of the aftermath. So okay, I'm still in the processing, digesting, and I don't even think it's made it to my stomach yet. so so this is just raw.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like what we are about. And what, I'm always about like reversing the idea that women, so many women were conditioned, so many women in our generation were conditioned to put others first.
Mm.
It's like out in certain religions, like God, first or others first, to be selfless. As I've always said, I was, often encouraged to be like to flip that and really have people understand that by really understanding their needs and taking care of themselves first, everybody around them, not just the people who live with them, but their community benefits because we show up better when we're actually including ourselves. And so I was really hoping for that. And I naively, was thinking that's what we are doing here is we are trying to, by including ourselves in what we care about and what we, or how we vote, we are really elevating everyone. And I think, I'm just in that place with so many people, but obviously not as many people as I thought, who were, like we're going to make a change that way and be more inclusive and be more aware. And I have all the emotions. I have the anger. I clearly have the inability to put it into clear words, but as I think you posted that I was in Arizona for a couple of days. That was the closest swing state I could get to as soon as I knew I wasn't having shoulder surgery. So I went. It was very last minute, as you know, and I plugged in with a great group of people, and we were just there to get out the vote and talk to people who hadn't voted yet and make sure they knew how to vote and where to go. And then I was a poll monitor, and I think it's, first of all, people were always amazed. Why are you even here? Why do you care? It's like, what do you mean?
Mm.
Why do I care? Isn't that why we vote? We care. And then also, if I don't vote, I can't complain. And boy, I voted and I'm going to complain. So, but also,
Indeed.
just it's just this place we're in where it's like I thought, even though I was deeply surrounded by and having some crazy and some interesting conversations with people who vote very differently than me, I really thought they don't realize that they're in the minority, only to realize later that night I'm in the minority. And that's a bitter pill for me. In the voting, I was in the minority of thinking that we were meant to be more inclusive. And I don't, just because I believe like I was ready for this woman president and she was more than qualified than anyone I've ever voted for. I don't just mean voting for a woman. I mean voting with the ticket and the propositions and the local representatives and that we're going to be more inclusive. And that's what I'm having trouble with.
Yeah, I mean, I I I don't mm, I don't love the word naive because I don't think either you or I are naive. I think we're, but mm, I'm shocked only in that I didn't understand the things I didn't see, and I think
Mm.
that's what so maybe that's naivete. I mean, obviously, but it's like, Yeah, I mean, I watched her campaign and I felt like, as did many, that it was flawless. There's as we were talking about earlier, because we just finished doing a pod with Elijah for her pod, Business as Activism, and that's coming out very soon, as well. And we'll be promoting the shit out of that because that was a really good conversation between the three of us. But in the Monday morning sort of quarterbacking, right? It's like, oh, Biden should have dropped out. And then that's not even Monday morning. People have been saying that forever. I don't know that it would have mattered. I mean, when it comes right down to why people didn't vote for her, I don't think Biden could have dropped out 6 months ago. He could have had a primary, whatever. I don't think it would have mattered because the reason they are voting against their own best interest is they're voting against their own best interest. And I just thought I guess my naivete is I thought we were smarter than that. I thought there were more people that had watched what had happened from 2016 to 2020, and and even if you set that aside, like they watched this campaign, he got more incoherent and more stupid and more racist and more um, mean as the days went on. And then you throw JD Vance into it, and that just amps it up to a whole nother level.
And Elon Musk and
Oh, and
RFK.
Elon Musk, and oh my God. And I just thought I don't know. I overestimated the American public. And so that is, I think what I'm grappling with is
I,
that aspect.
yeah, I kept thinking like, even if we don't agree on anything, I don't know how people from your own party saying don't trust him. He is
Yeah.
not safe.
Yeah.
Didn't
Never in a
didn't at least
million
give you
years.
pause. I don't understand how, Dick Cheney of all people, and then like and just this, like, I don't understand how actual facts didn't ever get through, like the totally grossly inflated, like manufactured evidence of violent criminal immigrants, or the fact, like that babies are being aborted in the 9th month. Like none of that. There is actual empirical data. There's people, people would know and trust that could tell them otherwise. They're choosing not to believe it. So
Yeah.
that was bizarre to me, because I thought clearly even people who don't like her are going to vote for her because he's just sounds unsafe now. He's clearly just demanding loyalty to him and to
Yep.
party and not to the Constitution. He's actually talking about getting rid of the Constitution. So no one's going to vote for that. So yeah, that's where my naivete was, I guess. But it's interesting because I have been listening to people, today. I think I told you I tried not to listen to anything yesterday and just gave deeply into my emotions. But somebody said today, actually, nothing new happened. Nothing new happened. America was once again revealed for what it is.
Yeah, I
And
did
we
see
are
that.
not united. We are, in fact, very divided. And I thought, fuck, true. I mean, we are a country that was founded on, saying we discovered and created and built something here, that first of all was taken from natives and then was built on the backs of slaves. And so,
Yeah.
like, and if people can't just be honest about that, and we're not like saying you yourself actually did that, but if we can't just be honest about that, and we want to suppress that information, and it's un-American to be honest about that, we are divided. We are not, like, this is who this country is. And so that's what's hard for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I mean, I guess, there's the old adage of like it's better to know your enemy. Um, but it feels like it wasn't so much about pre the golden escalator. I just wonder if people truly believe these things or if it's just been so part of the Fox News, Newsmax, right wing um, stratosphere since 2015 that people are believing something that they didn't necessarily believe before, right? I mean, I just can't believe all these people kept this to themselves up until 2015. I feel like it's been amplified and they've learned information that isn't true in the last 10 years. You
I
know what
mean,
I
I think
mean?
the seeds of it are there, because when you think about all the internalized racism we've been talking about, more and more,
Yeah.
as we look at like our own selves and the shows we were watching, the things we didn't realize, like I just like how dumb we feel, like that
Yeah.
things were so whitewashed, and we just didn't admit it. Even like so many people who weren't from the South were like, but we're not racist, right? Just because we don't live in the South and fly a Confederate flag, they didn't see
Right.
all of it. And there's deep shame with that, right? And so I do think the age of internet, and then the where people could find community with anyone who agreed with them on
Yeah.
anything, when you can find that, then you feel a little more emboldened. I think the response to having a Black president was everybody came out of the shadows with their white hoods on, and
Yeah.
and so things that were dormant in people, or they didn't realize like anyone would admit out loud, sort of started to become something that has grown huge audiences on the podcasts and on the YouTube channels and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everyone who voted for him would agree with me on that and would even identify with that, but I am saying, like, it isn't, as we know, it's not a problem for people that they are celebrating alongside people who are celebrating, who also are wearing swastikas. So it's like, can
Yep.
you just at least acknowledge that you are as happy as some people who you would tell me horrify you?
Yeah. 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 There's a part of me that just wants to say I call bullshit on that because if they horrify you, you would vote differently. Maybe that's unfair of me, but as I was saying earlier
Well,
on,
that makes logical sense.
I mean,
But
right, but
what has
by
made logical sense this week? I don't
fair,
even know.
yeah, nothing. I mean, that's what Darren and I were talking about last night, and I mean, God, I love him, and he's a good man. We are raising good men. We are married to good men. We have friends that are good men, and he was trying to be logical about all this, and I was like, dude, I am so I do not want to disrespect you as a human, but you will never understand what I am feeling right now as a woman, and it's just that simple. I, and he agreed. He agreed, but um, yeah. I mean, I don't. I guess I don't think it's a surprise to anybody how we feel. I think what I wanted to kind of come on here and say was that yeah, the day after the election was a lot of sick to my stomach, anger, tears. And it was interesting because unlike after Hillary Clinton lost in 2016, where I felt like I cried all day long, this would come in waves. It was just this real like wave of like, I'm angry, I'm crying, something would hit me or a song would come on and it would just like wash over me. Today, which is the 2 days after, I'm incredibly angry. I feel like that's going to stay with me for a while and I'm okay with that. Um, I had a very real sense last night, the day after the election, of like, I don't know how I keep doing this because if my whole thing is I want women to be in places of power, and we just lost to a man who, in the face of it, in real life, facts, he is a reality TV show who sleeps with porn stars, has had three wives, has been accused by one of those wives of raping, has been convicted of rape, has 34 felonies against him, ruined every business he ever had, versus a
and and
woman.
and and factually cheated on all those three. It's,
Oh,
it's okay that he
absolutely.
was married 3 times, is they
Yeah, yeah,
factually
yeah.
cheated on.
Within the next one. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Absolutely. And then Melania has a 10-month-old son and he sleeps with a porn star. Like, where are the family values? I just
I know.
versus somebody who really, truly, most qualified human to ever run for the United States had actual plans that was going to help the middle class, the poor, elderly people. Like she had plans to help everyone. Would they have all come true? I don't know. Who knows? But she had plans. And so if I'm standing here and saying I want women to be in a place of power and we just voted did not vote for a woman who could be, I'm like, how do I keep doing this? And I woke up this morning and I was like, oh, because I just will. I just will. And you will too. And I feel like
Yeah.
the pod is going to become even more important as we move into 2025 to let women know that they are not alone, that what they are experiencing, any range of emotion, is valid. And we see you and we hear you. And if you're watching the YouTube, Carrie is melting into her own hands. What is happening right now?
It's like it wasn't as to what you were saying. It was like
No, I
me
know.
just you're right. It's a fucking longer road. It's like we just thought we made some progress and we are
Yeah.
back a million feet. And it just is exhausting. It's how
Yeah.
I felt Tuesday night, honestly. Like I had probably over like 40,000 steps on my watch over those 2 days. And no, you know, I definitely have a couple broken toes. I'm not at all like poor me. I did a teeny tiny pinpoint of a fraction of what most people were doing, and um, so exhausted. And it just gave me that feeling of like, oh my god, this is just the beginning. And I thought that was, me helping out in the end. So wasn't.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
so it's unfair and hypocritical of me to come home and be mad at everyone who just votes and then they're horrified and I'm like, yeah, like especially people in my life that are like, I hate talking about politics. It's like, oh, well,
That is
because
privilege.
you are privileged and you get to go
Mm.
back to your life and it's not really being affected. But let's remember why we vote, hopefully. um and we don't live like if we're really truly united and it's not communist to actually care that everybody's represented and that all people feel equal. And that's just not happening. But I think what I was going to say was the height of naivete for me, to go back to that word, is not only choosing to believe someone who's like a known liar instead of any sort of facts, but also everybody who would say, oh, he distanced himself from Project 2025. Nope. Sorry. He just promised to hire one of the authors to take care of the borders. And like, if that doesn't horrify you, if you don't look at the fact that everybody who worked for him before is distanced themselves and that he's only surrounding himself with loyalty, I don't like, you don't, I don't know if like that naivete is too nice of a word for it.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's
It's
like willful
actively,
ignorance that does
totally.
harm. It does
Yep.
harm.
Willful ignorance. Absolutely. And
And the planet, it's fucked.
yeah, I mean, that's what I look at. I'm like, um, for people who chose not to vote for her for whatever reason, um, everything that you have right now is on the precipice of going away. Uh, he wants to repeal ACA. So if you are anyone who has a illness or a pre-existing condition, you will no longer be able to have health care. He wants to do a national abortion ban. Um, so that doesn't matter if you're on birth control or if you are pro-birth. If you have a wanted pregnancy and you have a miscarriage, you are more likely now to die in childbirth. It's already happened in the pro-Trump or in the Trump abortion states that have. It's already happened several times in just the last few months. Climate change. You want more hurricanes in Florida? You want more wildfires in California
And
and
and and
and
no
Oregon and
notification. And no notification.
no,
Yeah.
because the NOAA's going
Other
away.
service. Yep.
You want education? Too bad. Department of Education, bye bye. You want to stay healthy? Oh, but RFK is going to run the Department of Health. Huzzah, baby bear eating enthusiast, anti vaxxer, notorious anti vaxxer. Bye bye. Like
Well, I
everything
mean,
that
and that
you,
on that subject alone, anti-vaxxers voted for that. You know what I mean?
oh,
So
yeah,
like
totally.
they're not sad about that. They're
Right, right,
thrilled.
right. But true. But up until now, they probably had some vaccinations when they were younger. And maybe they chose not to vaccinate their kids, and that's why
Mm,
smallpox is back, and that's why measles is back, and
right.
you know what I mean. So the thing
Mm.
you think you're voting for, this way of life that you think you're voting for, you don't even know. what is about to happen. This way of life that we have
I,
lived is going away.
and so I'm trying to like, okay, so I want to get to this place of like, okay, so you wanted that, I didn't. You wanted that, I didn't, right? Okay. What about this whole like mirage of morality around being pro-birth, pro-life? Like, okay, so let's say you that's what you are. I come from a lot of people who, are very religious and very pro-life. I want to, and I've said to them, and I'll say here, what is your stance on rape culture that helps create it? Because
Mm-hmm.
you just elected somebody who's been accused multiple times and
And
convicted,
convicted.
and so and the other people that are celebrating his victory are saying your body my choice, and we are
Forever.
like we are in an abusive, like we've just created a system where women are less equal and have less say over their bodily autonomy, and that does produce rape culture, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't hear anything coming from those same people about that, about raising men to respect women if
Well,
you
because
are actually voting that way.
being pro birth has always been about controlling women. That's why it's pro birth and not
I
pro
know
life. I know
it's
you know
also
this, but I'm just
it's
saying,
also
like,
it got roots of racism too, but
oh,
yeah.
absolutely. This all does. It all,
Yeah.
misogyny, patriarchy, racism, it's all in there. It's all one big fucking muck. And it's in the shoved into a big fat blue suit with a tie that's too long and a comb over. And it's all in that and then his little minion JD Vance.
Yeah.
And um yeah, I mean, it's always been pro, it's never been about a life. It's always been about a birth. And it takes two to
Because
tango, and nobody has ever tried to regulate a man's body when it comes to what, I mean, you have to have
yeah,
sperm to have a baby. Nobody's ever regulated that bull. Nobody ever.
I say this all the time. Like, if you want to understand why I vote this way, if you need to understand that because you think I'm, so pro aborting babies, which is, just whatever. I am pro choice and I am pro equality. And until men have just as much fiscal, physical, legal responsibility
Yeah.
as the female and the fucking driver, like the Uber driver who's more at risk of getting prosecuted. Like until we can regulate the inseminators, this is a system that is set up unfairly. It is ridiculous why
Yeah.
like both two people decided to have sex often. Sometimes they didn't. Sometimes it's the result of rape or incest, God forbid, but it is. But when two people actually decided to, and one gets to go off to college and the other one has to bear the brunt of not just the physical toll, the mental toll, the fiscal toll, because it's going to cost a fortune,
Yeah.
the moral toll of what's happening there in misogynistic culture of like this slut shaming and making them these selfish people who want to kill babies. Like it's mind-boggling. My husband works in women's healthcare, and anytime anytime this subject comes up, he gets so mad that people have anything to say about it because it is so unequal. Men do not, if men had any sort of laws coming at them telling them what could happen with their body, this would not even be on the table.
I
and
mean,
and
no
until we
question.
can recognize that, I don't understand it. And like also the same people who say they're pro-life are pro-gun,
Mm-hmm.
and they definitely don't care about the rights of my disabled young man, like my son.
No, and
They
they
definitely
they
don't
don't care
do
about,
anything about mental health.
nope.
So
Don't they
what life are you
consider,
for? Like what, and also the like the rates of adoption among a lot of people in that population are also low. So they're
they
not out
don't want to
adopting those
help
babies.
support the children. They don't want, WIC. They don't want food stamps.
Free
They,
breakfast, they don't want
yep,
that.
they don't want free breakfast at school. They don't. Yeah, I mean, that
And
is
I
why
always
it is
wonder,
pro
like,
birth.
what do you know about that? Because I worked in like the highest poverty or second highest poverty school in Oregon for a while when I worked with I Have a Dream, and that free lunch or that free breakfast was sometimes the only time those kids were eating.
Yep,
And people like, I don't want to pay for that. Oh, you're so Christian.
yep, yep. I mean, that's the thing that kills me. It absolutely makes my head want to explode. There's a great song by Perfect Circle, which is an part is a offshoot of Tool, and it's called Talk Talk, and it talks about like act like Jesus, walk like Jesus, and if you don't, get the fuck out of my way. It is my favorite anger
Mm.
song because that is it in a nutshell. I don't know what Jesus they are following, but I grew up Catholic, you grew up Catholic, my kids grew up Catholic. The Jesus I learned about would have never voted for Trump. Never. He was inclusive. He was,
It's just
he,
hard to imagine him voting, but yeah.
well, also that. But
Yeah.
my point is like this vengeful God that they believe. I just don't. I just don't. I don't get it. It blows my mind. They are not. What would Jesus do? Nothing that you are doing.
I know. I do believe that on extreme left and extreme right, people are saying nasty things. Like I do believe
Yes.
that. And
Yep.
so anytime
Extreme
you
left
say
as well.
something, yeah. So anytime you say something like this, they're like, but I heard da 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 da. Like they're gonna point to the ugliest thing. And it's true. Like, but like you're you. So what do you believe? And what are you, what's the talk you're walking? Because I'm always trying to say that. Like there are some people who feel inherently evil. There are people who really truly believe they're doing something right. And like that, and very, very certain that this is like the way to vote. And so I'm constantly boggled by that because I have to be because I love people who vote differently than me, and it's like God, what is it that what is it like that's driving you? And I have to say it's fear,
Yeah.
and also some piousness, like this is what I'm supposed to believe, this is the right thing, and like and it's I don't know if it's like so much pious, but like it's just again, I don't know. I with my dad and I voted very differently, and he's been around for a long time, like 12 years, 12 or 13 years. And he thought Trump was a joke as a celebrity. He didn't really ever, he wasn't around when he was a political person. And I remember my mom used to be like, he's kind of ridiculous. And she's not really into the person, but she's a Republican. But I just remember my dad and I would go back and forth about stuff. And so for instance, he would say something about the welfare program. And I would be like, but do you know anybody on welfare? And he would say,
Yeah.
you're right, I don't. And I'd say, because I work with these kids and I work with some of these moms, and he would listen to me. Like, so I do believe people vote sometimes without any actual knowledge or like firsthand information. And they're these days, ever since like social media and the internet, and God forbid TikTok, they're getting fed so much stuff that really convinces them that they're voting on the side that's correct. And so that's where we like, I'm scratching my head and realizing we're never going to change minds by criticizing and being angry. And I'm going to be angry as long as I'm going to be angry and be sad and fearful of where we are at. But and maybe we don't change minds. Maybe this is the country we live in, and I got to figure that out. But I love this country. I believe in it. I love the sanctity of the office, and these branches of government are set up in a certain way, and this Constitution is set up in a certain way. And I love that, I voted for a party that peacefully will transfer power and that isn't threatening violence and accusing anyone of cheating, even though, like there's all kinds of theories that I'm sure, people on the left are going to pop up with because every election that happens. But um, I just feel like there is something to figure out here that I want to learn. Like I want to open myself up to understanding, like if we were to take away all this bullshit propaganda, what can you and I agree on? What can we agree on as humans and as mothers and as women? Like and I'm not there yet, but I really would like to get there.
Yeah, I'd like to get there too. I don't feel super optimistic that that's a thing that we can do. Um, if for no other reason than like there's a part of me that I understand, and it does. It comes from fear, and that makes me sad. Um, so I understand the fear. Um, but my gut says the problem or the challenge lies in they're not willing to understand us. I had a interesting back and forth.
Or they think they do understand us. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Right. But they understand us in their and we're doing the same thing, right?
Mhm.
We are right now because we're actively angry and sad and scared ourselves that we are having this conversation from that space. I own that completely. Um, but it was so interesting because I had this interaction with somebody I know over before right before the election, and it was around trans athletes of all fucking things. And this woman was coming from that propaganda space of um, trans women taking away medals from biological women. And I was like, well, first off, different, they're still women, because she's calling them men taking medals away from women. I'm like, they're women. And then she was talking about women need to be safe when they're in locker rooms. I'm like, I am way more scared of any white man in a MAGA hat than I would ever be of being in a room with a trans woman. But she kept calling them men, so we kept doing that little dance. And then I posted a picture of a youth pastor of a mega church down in Florida or Texas, excuse me, and who had just been arrested for child pornography. And she responded, sorry, I've got a cough, that she is against abuse in all forms. And I know she votes for Trump. So I was like, tell me more. She can't,
Mm.
when I'm mute, like,
Well, I mean, there's some cognitive dissonance there. I definitely, I'm noticing that there's a lot of young people that were formerly voting Democrat that are voting Republican, and they're explaining why now, and they're out there, blah, 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 blah. And so I'm like, I'll listen to some of it because I'm like, I'm so fascinated what's happening here. So there's some dissonance there that like, we're not all bad. You think we're all bad, but you guys have painted us this way. And so it's like, you say like that, you say you're against all forms of abuse and you just elected a known abuser, right? Or you say that and yet, we're about to break up a bunch of families, and if your main reason was the economy, it's going to cost us a fortune to actually do that. And so like it's interesting. Like I'm fascinated by the disconnect between the good that they think they're bringing about with their vote and like what is probably going to unfold. And do I know all that to be true? No, this is my come from. This is as much as I know at this point, and I'm sure as hell going to continue to educate myself more so I understand all this because it'll help my nervous system. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it'll make it worse. But yeah, I'm befuddled and baffled, and then yet I am realizing like, oh, I I'm in the minority of votes. Like that's so sad for me.
yeah. Um, well, this is obviously a very raw, technically raw pod, and we knew it was going to be that way because we just wanted to get it out and speak our truth. Um, things are going to unfold the way they unfold. Um, and I could speak for myself, and then I'd like you to speak for yourself. My plan is to continue doing what I'm doing in my private coaching, to continue to use this platform for education and lifting women up. I I said this on Elijah's pod as well, but I can say without a shadow of a doubt that my table is open, and if something happens and a woman who has voted for Trump, Vance, changes her mind and wants to come and join my table, there is always a seat there for you. I think it's important that you and I elevate our pod, we get opportunities to try to speak more frequently on different platforms as well, because it's just, it feels more important than ever to make sure women know that they are seen and heard. And I'm angry and I'm sad, and like you said earlier too, like that this is it's gonna come in waves for sure, and there's definitely I think gonna be worse anger and sadness and fear for us. Um, but I am open to seeing and hearing them, even if I will never understand it.
Yeah. Hmm. I that's so beautifully said. And I feel like I'm in the same boat, like personally and interpersonally in my life. I want to stay open and learn. I'm always just naturally someone who's a seeker of intersectionality. Like how can I like go to understand something very different than what I think is true and really like find out where we can go with that together. Um, I'm not like, I don't want people to hear my responses to this and say, then just leave. No, I don't want to leave. I belong here too. And like, how is it possible for um, everyone to have a voice at the table? And so I'm more like, continue to figure this out so that my voice is heard. And also I'm aware that I'm privileged and that, you know, I, I'm not in any immediate danger, but I do have a disabled young adult son. I'm frightened as hell that we just elected somebody who openly makes fun of disabled people, has said to his own nephew about his disabled son that we should let some of them die because it's just too hard to imagine what kind of quality of life they can have. Like it's really sad and concerning. There's a lot of policies that really could affect him. And yeah, people will go, you're fine in Oregon, but I care. I care that that is like actually the future.
Right.
So there's things I'm just going to have to double down and get a lot more active about. And so I'm determined to do that and make sure that my family is, doing the same, but meaning like my husband and kids. And we're all on board with that. Like Brendan is, like we need a political action committee for women's healthcare, like that's going deeper and wider than it has. And so I just feel like this is not the time to shrink. This is the time to be way more aware and heard. And I'm not saying that very eloquently because I'm just feeling a wave of emotions over the past few days. And I think of so many of the people I spoke to that, are voting out of fear. So it's like the more we talk, the less fear there will be, hopefully.
Yeah, if we name it. I think that's the other thing. I don't want to fall prey to othering,
Mm.
people who didn't vote like me. When I'm angry, I'm gonna do that, and I have no apologies for that. But I think a lot of why we are where we are right now is because of othering and fear of the other. And that's not just people that don't look like us, that's women. Women and men are seemingly very fearful of a powerful woman. And what they don't seem to understand is powerful women are not here to isolate or to demean or to take anything away from anyone. We're actually here to lift up all boats. So in my days with better angels, as I guess Lincoln said, I will not other, but I will slip up and I will get angry and sad and pissed and we'll do it and I know it and so be it. But I know what we're doing is important and it's going to continue to be important. Not just this pod, but bringing other amazing voices in to guest with us and our retreats and everything we're doing is to support a greater good and a better world.
Yeah.
It's our whole reason for being.
Hmm. Yeah, it's true. We we're here in community. That's what we want.
No question. No question. Because we heal in community and Goddess knows that is needed more now than ever. And I hope in that process we can heal people that didn't vote like us as well.
I know. And you know, what's interesting. I was just after our retreat, somebody reached out to me and asked, and they said, just curious, I'm not complaining, but why did you not want us talking about the election? I
Oh, you
think
didn't
people
tell me
listening to
this.
us, especially if people listen to the beginning and got to the end, because at the beginning you can hear us be like, ah, and by the end we're like, really, truly. Yeah. But like we have women who vote differently who come to our retreats, and we said like there's so much going on in the world. You said that so beautifully, and this is like this weekend we are really just going to focus on, you know, coming together and lifting each other up, and we aren't gonna have that discussion. We don't really have the time for that. Talk to
Yeah.
us anytime outside. And so I think like this is just a great example of it is like who we are, and like what we're here to do is unifying, and it is
Yes.
uplifting, and it is empowering,
And
and
inclusive.
yes.
So, thanks everyone for listening to this little quick bonus pod. If you have any reflections, you can obviously email us at the things we know podcast23@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Instagram, or we're not on Facebook as much. That's my bad, but Instagram definitely we're on. At the
And
things
if you
we
have any disagreements, let's have a
Oh my God,
conversation,
please,
please.
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 I will put on my coach hat and be and not my Lisa Kellyanne hat. Yes, I do strive again, on my better days, I strive to understand. I'm not sure that I ever will, but I strive for that, as I know you do, and you've said so eloquently earlier. Um, yeah, again, super lo-fi, off the cuff, pod today, but thank you for listening. And then we will be back Tuesday with our normal pod, and we will also be promoting the pod that we were on with Elijah, which should be coming out shortly as well. So you're going to have lots of content from us to listen to. But as always, we're so grateful that you listen and that you are in dialogue with us. Thank you very, very much. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.